England and Scotland will be disrupted today as work to restore NHS computer systems continues.
Planned operations and appointments at around 40 trusts have been cancelled after a cyber attack struck the health service yesterday afternoon. We've been hearing some patients' experiences, including this man who had major heart surgery cancelled.
I've been waiting for it for many months now. They only do it on a Friday morning, lunchtime, afternoon-ish. Yeah.
And you expected to have the operation today?
Indeed, yes, yeah. I was all cannulaed up. I daren't show you I've been shaved down the front because they were going to open me up. My arms have been shaved, so I was all ready to go, nil by mouth, since this morning. And then at 1:30, the surgeon turned up and said, unfortunately, we've been hacked and there's nothing we can do. We can't operate on you today.
I'm not the only one here, of course, who's waiting for an operation. So it's inconvenient, very frustrating for my fellow patients inside Lincoln County. The nurses are absolutely fabulous and the doctors. But also, I think it's a heinous crime, this hacking, because they're putting people's lives at risk.
They were very, very good. They coped with it well. You know, we had to wait a bit longer, of course, but it's a dreadful situation.
Dreadful situation there. Some of the patients caught up in this. Let's speak to the Home Secretary, Amber Rudd, now. Amber Rudd, just hearing those, this is the sharp end of this problem, isn't it? These people who would have had their operations by now.
Yes, and it's, as they said, very inconvenient. It's a disruption to individual lives, and it's a heinous crime, as the lady said. We're working very hard to make sure that we help the NHS put their systems back in order, and so far we've had reassurance from them that no patient data has been compromised. The National Cyber Security Centre is working with them to end the disruption, to contain it, and to make sure that we learn lessons from it.
Can you give us the figures, as you understand at this stage, about how many hospitals, how many trusts are affected?
Well, we understand that 45 have been affected out of several hundred, and most of them are being very cautious about this. Some of them are making changes, some of them aren't. Some of them are managing to carry on with their daily work despite these difficulties. But can I also just point out that this particular attack, this cyber attack, hasn't been particularly focused on the NHS. It's been a worldwide attack. It's affected 100 countries, different organisations, but it's just in the UK that it's been particularly impacted on our NHS.
What do you know about who might be responsible?
Well, we don't know the answer to that yet. I've spoken to the National Crime Agency, who are working with the National Cyber Security Centre to find out who might be. It will take a few days. We have to make sure we're very clear about what information we have and we track it down. I can also say that we're talking to international partners because this is an international attack. So we have good relationships with different countries who've been impacted, and we're sharing information to find out how best to address it, how best to end it, but also how to find out who has done it and how to make sure we have the right defences going forward.
Now, in amongst quite a confused situation, there are some very straightforward questions that many people want answering this morning. One is, are NHS files backed up?
They are supposed to be backed up. The purpose of backing up is, of course, partly to defend against this particular type of incident. This ransomware isn't about stealing data, it's about getting money off people to access data. If those files are backed up, that attack is absolutely worthless because people can just download the backed up information and work from that. So I hope the answer is yes. That is the instructions that everybody have received in the past. That is good cyber defence. But I expect, and we will find out over the next few days, if there are any holes in that.
Well, people might have been hoping for reassurance from the Home Secretary that question. They might have been hoping, you would be able to say, yes, the system is in place, they're backed up. But the information you're receiving at the moment is that it may be that some of these hospital trusts do not have the details of patients backed up. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, I don't have all that information. What I can say is that all NHS trusts have been asked to review their data overnight. The Secretary of State, Jeremy Hunt, is in touch with them. They're working with the National Cyber Security Centre. There may be lessons to learn from this, but the most important thing now is to disrupt the attack. Let's come back to afterwards whether there are lessons to be learned.
But to be clear, given the scale of the attack and what is threatened, and let's be clear about this, the threat on the site that appears on screen is that these details will be lost, will be destroyed within a space of a week. So if these aren't backed up, this is potentially a very, very difficult situation.
Well, we don't underestimate the difficulty of this. This is a dangerous cyber attack, the type that we have been expecting in a way, because that's why we've invested 1.9 billion in a national cyber security centre. It's why we have high levels of expertise in the area. It's why we've been training police and investing in cyber skills. But in terms of the outcome of this particular attack, we're going to have to wait for the dust to settle to see what the impact has been. But I would point out that most hospitals, most trusts are not affected, and most are getting on with their daily work.
A US hospital that was affected by a similar spyware, ransomware recently, paid a ransom of some $17,000 in order to get the material back. They made the decision, and we understand from experts that some commercial organisations will make that choice and have done in the past. You pay, you get the material back, you get access. Is there a government policy in relation to advising NHS trusts in this situation? Because clearly one option is to pay.
Well, not surprisingly, our very clear advice is not to pay. We don't believe we should be paying ransoms in this way. The advice that we give is about protecting your data online. There are ways very effectively of doing that, of having up-to-date antivirus software, of making sure you download the patches, and making sure you don't fall into the trap of pressing on certain
If I may, can I just push you on that? Because you're saying it's your advice. Are you telling NHS trusts not to pay? Is that what they're being told officially, that cannot happen?
Well, I've spoken, as I said, to the Secretary of State. Yes, that is the advice that we have given out. They should not be paying. That is government advice, yes.
And can I ask you about some information that's emerging from some of the experts in this field, which is to do with advice given out by Microsoft. And I understand this is a fast developing situation this morning. I'm looking at quotes from Ross Anderson, who's a professor of security engineer at Cambridge University's computer laboratory, saying that Microsoft issued critical notices in connection with security 2 months ago. The suggestion is that NHS organisations may either not have known this or have ignored advice to update what was relatively old computer systems. Now, I'm not sure if you heard those stories, but a lot of people are thinking that's completely unacceptable, given the importance of the information that's being stored.
We all know how important this information is, and everybody is aware. Anybody who works in the NHS, particularly at the senior level or in the IT level, are aware how important it is to have cyber defences, which is why the CQC inspection makes cyber part of that regular inspection. So they have been given, and most NHS trusts and organisations work within those guidelines to ensure that they do have up-to-date software, that they do have the right platforms, and that they back up appropriately. So this hasn't come out of the blue. We have been ready for this sort of attack. We have been giving advice, instructions and assistance to organisations like the NHS for many years to make sure we are ready for that. Our focus at the moment is making sure that we end the disruption being caused by this particular attack. Afterwards, we won't hesitate to learn lessons and see where we can improve.
Amber Rudd, thank you very much for your time this morning. Amber Rudd, Home Secretary.